I thought I knew why I came here. I saw it. The end. It was so vivid. But now the truth feels further away than ever. I still have so many questions.
You said you were going out, but I heard you through the wall. I said don't go far. You had me searching for a reason, but I was in the dark.
We can't let Trinity get hold of this.
Let's think this through.
Do you realize the tragedy you have unleashed? The cleansing has begun. It falls to me now to stop it before it consumes us all.
What have I done?
What a shame you can't hear me. I speak louder. Thought you could keep me in reserve.
I know that it's not practical.
While you made up your mind.
I know that it's hard to believe.
Could I hold myself back? Well, you fed me a fable, but I know the taste of life.
You don't know that you caused all this, Laura!
You need to trust me.
We have to trust each other.
I speak louder.
He wants to alter the course of humanity. If you had that power, what would you do?
Ever. And she's used to see dead people, you know, she's used to see that it's a tomb, it's called a tomb for a reason. What if she goes there and she finds that this place, people are still alive and they are not, they were never touched by modern civilization? What would she do and what would she say? And that's where people will say, wow, that could be very unique.
The thing I really like about having PyTT, and number one, as you mentioned, it's the largest hub that we've ever built in a Tomb Raider game. So for anyone who is looking to 100% the game, this is where you're going to have your work cut out for you, because it is filled with side quests, collectibles, narrative, and of course challenge tombs. So this is just dozens of hours of play here. But the thing that I really love about this is it sort of is a perfect encapsulation of what the world in Tomb Raider is meant to be. The world is always meant to be a character. In some ways, it's an enemy, because the world has secrets, and it is protecting them. And Lara is able to go into the hidden pockets of the world where these secrets are held, and survive in them, and overcome the natural predators and environmental hazards, and she's able to find those secrets. That's what makes her special, or part of what makes her so special. And the jungle, you know, as Dan was talking about, is one of the deadliest places in the world, and it is the protection for the hidden city of PyTT. So this is the big tomb, this is the big reward for being able to make it through the jungle. You then find the lost city of PyTT.
Later on, you'll see what the protector is, what's the guardian of PyTT. One interesting part also for PyTT is that in the previous games, Lara, you know, didn't get to talk to a lot of people. It was always she isolated. She was doing all these things by herself. She had some couple interaction with some characters like Jonah, for example. But it was really never that amount, that deep. We had the Remnant on Rise, which you interact with. In this case here, we are touching a point where Lara, she's not very comfortable. Normally, Lara, she's very comfortable when you talk with her about archaeology. She's geeking out, she's comfortable. But if you ask her, what did you do last weekend, Lara? She will be like, she doesn't have.
She can't small talk.
Exactly.
She was probably raiding a tomb, in all honesty.
Exactly, probably that. So it was very interesting from a team perspective where, we were saying that what if Lara would talk with people around a table? She'd go to a cafe and sit down and chill. What would she say? And then we didn't know. We were thinking about that, and that's where we said probably she doesn't even know herself. So her relationship, even during side missions, things like that, she's very awkward. She's not, she's not super comfortable because she spends all the time with dead people. And dead people are not very social.
Jonah's not dead.
Yeah. So I know because I'm spending a lot of dead people too, because I spent 8 years with Lara, so I've seen a lot of dead people.
Well, and Dan, I know that we also have the immersion mode. Mario, this is one of the things I think actually, speaking to Dan's point about it being somewhat awkward for Lara, that could actually make it awkward for the player, but on purpose, right?
Yeah. When we say big, we even have around 19,000 facial animation for conversation. Everything you see in a Pike TT right now, all the possibilities of conversation with people around the town, it goes up to 19,000, so it's very, very big.
And for the immersion modes, if you want to play, because that's adding to the numbers, the way they move, the facial and things. But if you really want to go with the initial vision, because the initial vision was bringing you to a place we've never seen before, a what-if place. What if the Maya and the Aztec, Inca would all merging together at a certain point, even though they never did. But it's a what-if place. We need to create something very unique and very, how these cultures will coexist for 400 years without connecting with the exterior world. And we add an immersion mode in the menu where if you don't want to hear them speaking English, with the chatter around, you want to hear them in the native language, you can do it. You can put the immersion mode and you can immerse yourself in that world completely.
Right. And so right now, one of the things I did want to call out, because this is one of the best parts, in my opinion, the challenge tombs that are off the main PyTT hub. So you can see here just a couple of the different spaces that you're going to be exploring. And this is where, when we talk about terrifying tombs, this is what we mean. The idea that this was a place and a culture that celebrated death and worshipped fear. And, there are those three main components to the tomb, and the challenge tomb included. The first was that it was just difficult to get to. So you see that Lara right now has to do a significant amount of traversal just to find the entrance to the challenge tomb. The second was, once you actually found it, it looked like it was a foreboding place. It was warning you to not come in here. But then, of course, Lara being Lara is going to push forward. And then the third thing was that it's deadly inside. Everything is trying to kill you. And we'll show you that a little bit more when we get to the Warrior's Trial later in the panel.
One thing that was important in PyTT for the biggest hub we ever created, it was on the tech side to be able to have at all time at least 50% on time on screen. So this is one thing that we did to make sure that we can bring life, as PyTT is kind of a celebration of life.
Mm-hmm. When you add PyTT and all the side missions and show social and crypts and challenge tomb, people were saying it's impossible. We cannot do that. It's impossible. And one of the things we worked a lot on, and maybe Mario can expand on it, but we worked hard to try to make the impossible possible. Yeah. And there's a lot of challenge tomb and crypts and side mission communicating with the people there. And it's massive. It's the biggest, like we were saying, it's about 3 times the size of the biggest hub we had on Rise. And we can go underwater, we can go up by using some of the what we call the overhang, like it's more a vertical way to climb, and all that is just there for you to explore and discover.
Yeah, and you mentioned the crypts. So in Rise of the Tomb Raider, if you remember, the crypts were just relatively small areas. They had a sort of like a maze-like path that you had to solve, and then you'd have a reward on the inside. Well, now in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the crypts are as large as the challenge tombs were in Rise of the Tomb Raider, and many of the challenge tombs in Shadow of the Tomb Raider are as big as the main tombs were in Rise of the Tomb Raider. So they're not just terrifying, they're larger, there's more of them. So this really is, Lara coming to the height of her skills, not just in the combat, not just in the narrative, but in her tomb raiding skills. And then you can see there the new tactics that we were talking about, like the rappelling, the swing, the wall run, all these things are necessary in order to move about the environment.
Yeah, and the rappel down, as you saw just before, is a new mechanic that allows us to expand on the exploration of the world. So now you have new way to get down, to get into some places, to get rewards.
And this is the entrance to the Warrior's Trial. You can see these spinning obelisk blades that Lara has to make her way through. Again, a lot of traversal challenges. The idea that once you get inside the tomb, not just the traps, but even just its inner workings, the puzzle elements, those are all trying to kill you.
Yeah, I died a lot when I play, like a lot.
We have these difficulty sliders, actually.
Oh, I did hear about those.
Yeah, but she was playing easy and she died a lot. So.
No, it's true, I was. I think I just got to a point where maybe I was like Lara. I was maybe a little too cocky, and I was like, I can do this, just run through, and I just always fell off the ledges. That was like the cause of most of my deaths, so be careful, those ledges will sneak up on you.
The thing about using the rappel and things like that, it makes the traversal more challenging than before. Before that, you were actually, following some things you were seeing that you could actually, we call them the grappling axe, visual language. You could actually follow that. In this case now, because there's a rappel, because you can wall run, because you can balance, it add a lot more challenge to all the traversal.
One thing...
it does look dangerous, you are right.
The deeper playthrough that Dan was talking about, but one of the things I love about this is the fact that it's located underwater. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider has full 360-degree movement. In Rise of the Tomb Raider, you kind of paddled around the surface, and fans said, bring back swimming. We want to go underwater. That's a hallmark of the franchise. And we said, all right, be careful what you wish for, because we're going to give you underwater survival. You've got moray eels, you've got piranhas, you have to manage your oxygen. It's all very fast-paced. It's not meant to be a clunky, slow exploration. But the idea is that Lara is going into these unfamiliar territories. You have to make your way through very, very narrow crevasses, like down dark tunnels. You don't know what's waiting for you. You don't know if there's a treasure there, a challenge tomb, or you're just going to run out of oxygen. So we add that element of exploration. And in this case, if you have upgraded Lara's breath enough, she can make it all the way to this challenge tomb. Without that skill upgrade, you'd never be able to hold your breath long enough to find this challenge tomb.
And she's got a sweet outfit too.
That's funny enough, because for the underwater thing is that because people were not used to do that when they start playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider, so they went underwater and there were signs of challenge tomb, but they were all turning back because they were afraid of missing, some oxygen. So it was a very interesting dynamic, and seeing that was for us was like, yes, we got it. People are afraid.
Also, we can't talk about a shadow without the lighting aspect. And for us, building Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we said, okay, we need to invest in our lighting technology. So we pushed a lot to make sure that we can bring the most immersive environment as possible. So you can see how lighting is something that talks through the screen, and also underwater, there's everything is handcrafted to make sure that we have a very, very immersive environment.
Yeah, and Andrea, you mentioned the outfit. You like that. One of the things that is really actually quite important about this is that it is showing the culture of Paititi accepting Lara. Because at first, much like the jungle, Paititi is pushing back against Lara. They don't recognize her as someone coming to try and help. They recognize her as a threat from the outside world. And eventually, through her actions and through her friendships with people and interacting with them in a meaningful, positive way, they begin to trust her and welcome her into the culture and give her, the garb that sort of allows her to move freely throughout there. And I think that's sort of like an example of how we treat the world in general. Paititi eventually will accept you if you're doing the right things and it recognizes you're trying to help. The jungle, when you first start, is a very dark and foreboding place. And then as you progress and as Lara becomes one with the jungle, as we say, it actually opens up. It becomes lighter because it is a symbol of the world saying, all right, Lara is fitting into it. It is becoming one with the jungle. Of course, that gives you a lot of great combat advantages, but it's also a measure of that respect that the world is kind of giving Lara.
And from a narrative standpoint, also, what's important about Paititi is that it's also a pivotal point for her as she's growing into her role. And this is a pivotal point. Her relationship with that city will actually change her, and you'll feel that as you're going to play the game, that there's emotional evolution for her when she goes there, because she's seeing how these people are living. They see how they're accepting her, because the dress that she wears right now, it's an Incan dress. It's part of the rebel group. She's a part of the rebel group helping against the cult of Kukulkan, of course. We like to do a joke about that because there's one of the video, the merchant is saying that. It's funny for us because we've been hearing it 10,000 times, but that's what it is exactly. So she's going against this cult, this tyrannical cult, and they helping each other. And that's what the thing about that is, that her relationship with this rebel, with these people, actually is transforming her. It is the gate to get to Paititi. This is one of the ideas that people from the community had, say, hey, a lot of these cool tombs actually are challenge tombs, and we would like to have tombs that are much more complex on the main path. And because we had the adaptive difficulty in mind, we knew that we could do that. So actually this tomb is on the main path, and it's protecting Paititi. It is hard, but it is cool, and it's epic because it's one of the few, when you look at it, it's one of the few tombs that we have that are open air. And it's the Trial of the Eagle. So there's multiple trial that Lara had to go through, reach Paititi. That's why it's not touched by modernity. It's protecting it. There's a trial of the jaguar, trial of the spider, and this is the trial of the eagle.
Oh, you guys put spiders in the game? Why?
Well, and you know what? I think that one of the things that is most special about this is one of my favorite spots, because it combines several pillars that are so important to the franchise. So if you look at what we're showing here, it's, yes, a tomb, but it also heavily focuses on traversal, heavily focuses on puzzle solving, interacting with the environment, as well as there are some traps in here. If you're not careful, some of the elements that you turn on can actually kill you. And I will say, if you don't want a spoiler, anytime you see Lara take out her bow, close your eyes, and then just keep it closed for about a 10 count, and then you can open it back up. We won't think you're scared because there's nothing scary in this tomb, but if you want to solve it by yourself, the bow is going to give you some spoilers if you watch.
Yeah, one thing about failing in trial, this is a good example because in the first place, that map was built by a team we're working with, a great team we're working with. And at some point, we were trying to get a very good puzzle. We couldn't do it, so how many times we throw that in the garbage, redo it, and at one point we said, okay, let's bring one of the challenge to put it on one of the puzzle and put it right on the path, and it became one benchmark for all of the other puzzle we made for the game.
So I can say the first version of the puzzle was pretty lame. To be honest, it was pretty lame. Video games is very hard, and you test a lot of things. And like Mario was saying, it was a team that was building one of the benchmark, what would be like a challenge tomb things, and we were like, wow, man, let's get that and put it there, and it felt right at home with the wind and eagle, so it actually felt right at home, and now people actually love that because it's a great gate.
I love that you indirectly insulted the first guy that worked on this. You're like, it's pretty lame. There's one person right now crying watching this stream, so good job, Dan. I think that this is also a great
lame
example.
Stuff all the time.
Yeah, I think this is also a great example of if you turned off the white markings, just imagine trying to navigate this space without knowing what you could interact with. That to me is where all you guys who said, I think it's like turn off white paint is the group that Dan was talking about earlier. everyone in that group, this is where you're going to say, maybe just here we turn it on.
Just for this one tomb, and then I'll turn it back off. I promise.
Exactly.
No, always leave it on. Just leave it on.
Yes, but this is one of my favorite spaces, just because it shows Lara doing what Lara does best, being a brilliant archaeologist, and it's, there's no combat in here, so you can just take your time. You can figure out how does the world work. We always try and make sure that we have very physics-based puzzles, making the world interact and react in a very believable manner. To Dan's earlier point, making it feel like the civilization could actually build this using the technology and the means that they had at their disposal. So this, for me, is just such a great example of what makes Shadow of the Tomb Raider special, because you've got an open air tomb, you've got all this puzzle solving, you've got the culture clearly shining through here. So I just love this.
Got to find another way out.
Whoever did this demo makes it look so easy. It was not this easy when I tried it.
Believe it or not, when we are making these captures, so I will say a little insider info for you guys, because you were kind enough to join the panel. We probably go through about 20 to 25 captures before we will actually put it up on screen, because we will sit there, and to do a run through like this where you don't mess up, like, oh, that was so perfect, except Lara's leg just clipped through that rock right there. Sorry. Go back and re-record this 20-minute segment.
Oh, no.
And then we make somebody else cry. That's how I make people cry. Dan makes them cry by saying, your work was crap.
But most of the things I say it's crap, it's because I directed it too. It's like the tomb before this one, I directed it, and it was crap. But
that was you in the mirror talking to yourself. Your work is crap. You make that puzzle not lame.